Hey guys, tonight we are traveling back in time. And not just for a casual stroll through a museum, we're going to ancient Sparta. And let's be honest, you probably have a tough time on your first day. This isn't a romanticized, chiseled-up version from the movies. This is the real, gritty, and frankly, very peculiar world of the Spartans, where your personal life was about as private as a city-wide announcement. We're going to explore what relationships, love, and family were really like in a society built entirely for war. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And for our little ritual, let me know in the comments what city you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always a comfort to know we're all settling down for the night together, scattered across the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into 2 nights' journey together. Your existence begins not with a warm coo, but with a cold, critical assessment. The air in the valley of Laconia is sharp. Even inside, you've just been born, but the celebration is on hold. There's a process to follow. Your first journey isn't into your mother's loving, permanent embrace, but to a place called the Nestchea, sort of council hall where the elders of your tribe gather. You are a bundle, small and new, carried by your father. His hands are calloused and strong, but they hold you with a sense of duty, not just tenderness. You feel the slight jolt of each step as he walks along the hard-packed earth roads of your city-state. There are no grand marble temples in your immediate view, not like in Athens. Sparta is functional. The buildings are sturdy, unadorned, built for purpose, not for show. Just like the people. You arrive. The elders are there. They are not smiling, welcoming figures. They are old men. Their faces like maps of past campaigns. Their bodies lean and weary from a lifetime of discipline. They are the Jurassiae, the gatekeepers of Spartan society, and you are their next item of business. Your father hands you over. The hands that take you are ancient, their skin like dry parchment over bone. They unwrap your swaddling clothes, and you are exposed to the cool air, your tiny body vulnerable under their scrutinizing gaze. They are not looking for cuteness. They are looking for defects. They turn you over, examining your spine for any hint of curvature. They run their fingers along your limbs, checking for straightness and strength. They watch your movements, your cries. Are they vigorous, or are they the weak whimpers of an infant unlikely to survive the brutal training that awaits every Spartan male? You are not a baby to be loved. You are a future hoplite to be inspected. A potential brick in the Great Red Wall of Sparta. If the brick is fraud, it is discarded. There's a curious story, told centuries later by the writer Plutarch, about another test you might have faced. Some say that newborns were bathed not in water, but in wine. The theory was that the strong, undiluted wine would cause a weak or epileptic infant to have a seizure and perish, while a healthy baby would emerge tempered and stronger. Imagine that sensation, the shock, the sharp smell, the strange liquid clinging to your new skin. Historians still debate whether this wine bath was a literal, widespread practice or perhaps a symbolic tale, an exaggeration meant to highlight Spartan toughness for an outside audience. It's one of those details lost to time, but it paints a vivid picture of their mindset. There are only 2 possible outcomes in this room. The first is a quiet, affirmative nod from the elders. It's a silent consensus. The child is sound. He is worthy. He will be returned to his parents to be raised for the state. He will be fed, clothed, and prepared for the day. At age 7, when he will be taken from them, you are given back to your father. You have passed. Your life is now set on a singular, grueling track. You have been approved for existence. The other outcome is a slow shake of the head. A flaw has been found. A twisted foot. A weak cry. Something that marks you as an unworthy investment for the state. In this case, you are not returned to your father. You are taken by a servant of the state on a different path, to a deep chasm at the foot of Mount Tegedos. This place is called the Apiodate, a place of rejection. There, you would be left. It wasn't a malicious act in their eyes, but a practical one. Sparta needed warriors, and mothers of warriors. There was no room for anything less. It was a calculated, cold, and efficient form of state-run eugenics. Your body, from your very first breath, was never truly your own. It was a resource, owned and bettered by Sparta itself. You, however, have made it. You are back in your mother's arms. The scent of milk and warmth, a stark contrast to the cold appraisal of the elders. But something has been settled. You are not just her child, you are a future soldier, unknown to her for just a few short years. Your value has been confirmed. Your purpose assigned. The first and most perilous test of your Spartan life is over. The next 7 years of your life are a strange paradox, a brief, almost normal childhood lived under the shadow of a ticking clock. You are with your mother, you play with other boys your age, you learn the rhythms of a Spartan household, but it's all temporary. You are being fattened up, in a sense, for the machine. Your mother doesn't coddle you. When you fall and scrape your knee, you are told to be silent. Crying is a weakness. She speaks to you in short, direct sentences, instilling in you the laconic wit for which your people are famous. It's a love language of resilience, not affection. Every lesson, every meal, every interaction is a form of pre-training. Then, the day comes. It's the morning of your 7th birthday. There's no party, no gifts. There is only a quiet finality in the air. Your father, a man you've seen mostly in passing as he spends his days and evenings with his military unit, is there. He looks at you with an unreadable expression, pride, perhaps, or just grim acceptance. Your mother hands you a small bundle. It's not much. A change of tunic, maybe a small piece of dried meat. She looks you directly in the eye, and the famous words, or some variation of them, might be spoken. Come back with your shield, or on it. It's the Spartan mother's blessing. Return a victor, or return a corpse. There is no third option. You are taken from your home. This is it. This is the start of the Agoge, the rearing. Think of it as the universe's most intense, decade-long camping trip. Except you can trade home and the counselors actively encourage you to fight each other. You are led to a barracks with a group of other 7-year-old boys. You are now part of an age loss, a herd. Your individual identity begins to dissolve almost immediately. You are no longer the son of so-and-so, you are a member of the pack. The conditions are a deliberate shock to your system. The soft bed you knew is gone. Replaced by a pile of reeds you must gather yourself from the banks of the Eurotas River. In the winter, you're allowed to add thistledown to it for a little extra warmth. But it's a miserable comfort against the cold stone floor. You are given one garment for the entire year, a single, thin tunic. As you grow, it becomes shorter and tighter, a constant, itchy reminder of your austere life. And shoes are a luxury for the weak. You are forced to go barefoot, year-round. The idea is to harden your feet, to make you capable of running and fighting on any terrain without a second thought. Your body is being systematically stripped of its comforts, reforged into it to love the state. Food is the central obsession of your new life. You are fed, but only just enough to survive. The rations are intentionally meager. The black, sludgy broth and a bit of barley bread. Hunger is a constant companion, a dull ache in your belly that never truly goes away. This is by design. The state wants you to be lean and hungry, but it also wants you to be resourceful. And so, you are taught one of the most famous and misunderstood Spartan lessons. You must supplement your diet by stealing. The act of stealing itself is not the crime. The crime is getting caught. If you are caught, you are punished severely, not for the theft, but for your incompetence. You might try to sneak into a private garden to grab some figs, or, in a classic test, attempt to steal cheeses from the altar of Artemis or Thea. But there are wits waiting for you. It becomes a game of cunning, stealth, and risk assessment. Every stolen piece of food is a victory, a testament to your growing skill as a future soldier. It teaches you to be invisible, to be quick, and to endure pain if you fail. Here's a detail that often gets lost amidst the stories of wrestling and fighting. A significant part of your education is in music and dance. This sounds bizarrely out of place, doesn't it? But for the Spartans, it was essential. You were taught to sing choral poems celebrating Spartan heroes and martial valor. You must learn the Pyrrhiki, a complex war dance performed in full armor, mimicking the movements of attack and defense. Historians still debate the exact balance of the curriculum, how much time was spent on literacy versus these more communal arts. But the purpose was clear: music and dance taught you rhythm, discipline, and, most importantly, how to move as a single, unified body with your comrades. A phalanx is not a collection of individual fighters, it is a single, multi-legged organism. Your training in the arts was just another way to erase the individual and forge the collective. As you lie on your bed of reeds on that first cold night, surrounded by the quiet sobbing of other boys trying to stifle their tears, you understand. Your old life is over. The warmth of home is a distant memory. This barracks is your new family. The state is your new parent. Your body, your mind, your very spirit are now raw materials to be hammered into the shapes Sparta demands. And tomorrow, the real training begins. As the years in the Agoge blur into one long season of hardship, you begin to notice the structure of your world. It's a ladder, a brutal hierarchy where you start at the very bottom. Overseeing your entire herd is a young man, probably around 20 years old, called Diren. He is a recent graduate of the Agoge himself, a product of the very system he now perpetuates. He is your warden, your drill sergeant, and your judge, all rolled into one. His authority is absolute. He carries a whip, and he is not afraid to use it. It's for punishing mistakes, for settling disputes, for instilling discipline. But his role is far more complex than that of a simple bully. He is also your primary educator. He teaches you how to fight, how to wrestle, how to throw the javelin. He leads you in the war dances and the patriotic choruses. He is the one who orchestrates the organized brawls between different herds, chaotic, bare-knuckle affairs designed to foster a spirit of fierce competition and group loyalty. But it's the relationship that develops on a personal level that is most unique to the Spartan system. Sometime in your early teens, a specific older, accomplished warrior, a full citizen, might take a special interest in you. This isn't the Iran, this is a man from the outside, a soldier in his prime. He becomes your mentor, your patron. This relationship was an official, socially recognized institution. The older man was the Aristas lover and you were the Aetas beloved or protege. Now the word lover here comes with a mountain of historical baggage and debate. When ancient writers like Xenophon and Plutarch describe this, they are adamant that it was a chaste and honorable mentorship. The Aristas was responsible for your moral and military education. He was supposed to be a role model, teaching you courage, honor, and the Spartan virtues. He would praise you in public for your achievements and, more importantly, he would be held responsible for your failures. If you, his protege, showed cowardice or committed a shameful act, your mentor would be fined or disgraced. It was a bond of shared honor. You would spend time with him, learn from his experience, and seek to earn his approval. He would be your advocate, your protector, your guide through the treacherous social landscape of the Agoge. It's a powerful bond. In a world where your parents are absent and your direct superiors are often brutal, having a respected warrior take you under his wing provides a crucial anchor. However, the nature of this bond is one of those areas where historians are still in deep discussion. Was it purely platonic, as some ancient sources claim, or did it, as others like Plato hint at in their critiques of Spartan customs, have an intimate, physical dimension? The evidence is frustratingly ambiguous. The Spartans themselves left no written records explaining the intimate details of their lives. Our understanding is filtered through the lens of other Greeks, mainly Athenians, who were both fascinated and appalled by Spartan society. They often projected their own customs or fears onto their rivals. So you find yourself in this intense, one-on-one relationship. You look up to this man. He is everything you aspire to be: a decorated soldier, a full citizen, a man of standing. You strive to make him proud. The affection and loyalty you feel are real and profound. Whether that relationship crossed a line into what we would now consider a physical one is a question that hung in the air then, and still hangs in academic circles today. It's possible the reality varied from pair to pair, an unspoken aspect of a society that prioritized results over sentiment. Here's a peculiar detail of this system: it was considered shameful for a boy not to have a mentor. Being unchosen suggested you lacked potential, that no respected warrior saw anything in you worth cultivating. Conversely, it was also considered a mark of poor judgment for a boy to choose a mentor based on wealth or looks rather than on character and virtue. The whole system was framed as a meritocracy of honor. You are being shaped not just by the state-sanctioned brutality of the barracks, but by the focused attention of one man. He is your big brother, your teacher, and perhaps something more. He is your direct link to the world of adult Spartan men you are so desperate to join. When you fight, you are fighting for his honor as much as your own. When you endure a whipping without crying out, it is his approving nod you seek. In the cold, impersonal machinery of the Agoge, this relationship is the most intensely personal experience you have. It's a bond forged in the crucible of Spartan education, and its echoes will follow you for the rest of your life, shaping your understanding of loyalty, honor, and male companionship. While you are barefoot, hungry, and learning the brutal art of survival in the boys' Agoge, you might catch a glimpse of something remarkable on the other side of the training field. It's a group of girls, and they are not sitting inside, learning to weave or spin wool like the girls in Athens or Corinth. They are outside. They are running, wrestling, and throwing the discus and javelin, their bodies gleaming with olive oil under the Laconian sun. This is the parallel track of Spartan education, and in the ancient world, it is utterly revolutionary. While you are being molded into a perfect soldier, the girls of Sparta are being molded into the mothers of perfect soldiers. And the state believed that strong mothers produced strong children. It was a simple, pragmatic equation. A weak, cloistered woman, in their view, could never produce a true Spartan. So from a young age, a Spartan girl embarks on her own state-mandated training program. It isn't as immersive or as brutal as the boys' Agoge. She still lives at home with her family, but is rigorous in public. You see them practicing in the open. Their tunics, the peplos, shortened, done sewn on one side, a practical garment that allows for freedom of movement. This fashion choice earned them the nickname Phanom Rides, or thigh showers, from other scandalized Greeks, who were used to their own women being heavily draped and kept out of sight. You watch them compete. They have their own races, their own wrestling matches, their own championships. They develop a physical confidence and a competitive spirit that is unheard of anywhere else. They are not being trained for war, but for health. Their athleticism is geared towards one primary goal: eugenics. The state needs them to be in peak physical condition to endure childbirth and produce healthy, robust infants who will pass that first critical inspection by the elders. Their education isn't purely physical, either. Just like you, they are taught to read and write a level of literacy that was rare for women in the ancient world. They also learn music, song, and dance. They are known for their sharp, witty, and often biting humor. They learn the same stories of Spartan glory, the same patriotic hymns. They are being indoctrinated into the state ideology just as thoroughly as you are. They are taught that their highest calling is to be the mother of a hero. The glory they can achieve is vicarious, channeled through the sons they will one day raise and send off to fight. Here's a strange detail that illustrates their unique status. Unmarried girls would often participate in religious festivals, sometimes dancing and singing in the nude in front of everyone, including the young men. This wasn't seen as scandalous or improper by the Spartans. It was a state-sponsored display of health and vitality. Ancient writers like Plutarch suggest it served multiple purposes. For the girls, it was a point of pride, a way to display their athletic, well-toned bodies. For the young men, it was a form of state-sanctioned matchmaking. It was meant to inspire desire and encourage marriage, not for romance, but for the procreation of more strong Spartans. The level of freedom these girls experienced is staggering compared to their Greek counterparts. While you are locked away in your barracks, they are managing household affairs, moving freely about the city, and speaking their minds in ways that would have an Athenian woman ostracized. They are not property to be passed from father to husband. They are vital, respected partners in the Spartan project. However, the exact nature and structure of the girls' educational system is another area where historians have to do a lot of educated guesswork. Did they have formal schools like the boys? Was the training centrally organized? Or was it more of an informal expectation managed by families? The ancient sources are much more focused on the male Agoge, leaving the female experience in the shadows. We know it happened. We know it was radical. But the specific day-to-day logistics remain a topic of academic debate. As you stand there, nursing a fresh bruise from your own training, watching these girls compete with a fierce joy, a strange mix of emotions might stir in you. They are not the delicate, sheltered creatures you hear about from other city-states. They are strong, loud, and confident. They meet your gaze directly, without shyness. In this moment, you understand that your future wife will not be a passive, silent partner. She will be a product of this same demanding system. She will be as tough, as disciplined, and as devoted to the state as you are. And one day, your entire future, your ability to become a full citizen, will depend on choosing one of them as your partner. Years pass and the Agoge. You are no longer a boy. You're approaching 20, maybe a little older. Your body is a map of scars and hardened muscle. Your mind is a repository of laconic phrases and tactical knowledge. You've survived. You're on the cusp of manhood. But you're not quite there yet. There are still a few hurdles to clear before you can be considered a full citizen. And homo ios, one of the similar S or equals, and one of the most important, and strangest, is marriage. For you, marriage is not a romantic affair that begins with courtship and culminates in a joyous public ceremony. It begins with an abduction, a kidnapping. Here's how it works. You, along with the other men your age, have identified a suitable partner. Perhaps you saw her competing in the foot races, her strength and vitality on full display. Perhaps you were captivated by her during a religious festival. Or, more likely, it was a practical decision, maybe even arranged quietly between your families. The goal is to match to strong, healthy specimens for the good of the state. Once the choice is made, the ritual begins. It is a performance of capture. You wait for a moonless night. You are a soldier, and this is a stealth mission. You sneak to her family's home, your heart pounding not with romantic fervor, but with the thrill of a clandestine operation. You find her, and you abduct her, carrying her off into the night. This isn't a violent or non-consensual act in the way we would understand it. It's a deeply ingrained tradition, a piece of social theater that everyone understands. The bride is a willing participant in her own capture. The whole affair is meant to be secret, at least officially. Historians still debate the precise meaning of this ritual. Was it a symbolic holdover from a more primitive, bygone era of actual bride capture, or was it a way to subvert the normal emotions of a wedding by framing it as a covert, military-style operation? It stripped the event of sentimentality, reinforcing the idea that this union was a practical matter, not one of passion. After you've captured your bride, you don't take her to a new home you've prepared. You take her to a designated dark room, where a bridesmaid figure, known as the Nymphocomos, has prepared her. The preparations are peculiar. Her head is shaved, completely bald, just like a new recruit in the Agoge. She is then dressed in a man's cloak and sandals and left alone in the dark on a pallet of straw to await your arrival. Imagine the scene. You. A young man who has spent the last 13 years living exclusively with other men, conditioned to value martial prowess above all else. She, a young woman with a shaved head, dressed like one of your comrades, waiting in the pitch black. It is the most unromantic wedding night imaginable, and that is precisely the point. It is designed to be awkward, disorienting, and brief. You sneak into the room. Under the cover of absolute darkness, you spend a short time with your new wife. The goal of this encounter is singular and unsentimental conception. This is not about love or companionship. It is your civic duty. Your first act as a married couple is an attempt to produce a future soldier or a future mother of soldiers for Sparta. Here's a small, fascinating detail that underscores the secrecy of it all. After this brief, nocturnal meeting, you don't stay the night. You don't wake up next to your new wife. You have to leave. You must sneak back to your barracks before dawn and sleep in your usual spot. Among your comrades, you have to pretend as if nothing happened. You are a married man, but no one is supposed to know. Your life, your daily routine, remains unchanged. You are still a soldier living in the barracks. You are not yet a husband in any recognizable sense. This strange, clandestine beginning sets the tone for the first several years of your marriage. It is a relationship that exists only in stolen moments, in the shadows. Your primary loyalty is not to your wife, it is to your messmates, your military unit, and the state. Your marriage is a secondary, almost secret, part of your life, and you will have to continue this charade. This life of nocturnal visits, for years, until you finally earn the right to live with the woman you married in the dark. The sun rises over the Tagetos Mountains, its light falling on the barracks where you lie on your rough pallet. You are a married man, but your day is exactly the same as it was yesterday. You wake with the others, engage in the same grueling training exercises, eat the same meager broth. Your new marital status is a secret you carry inside you. Publicly, nothing has changed. Your relationship with your wife now enters a strange and prolonged phase of clandestine meetings. For years, this is what your marriage will be. You live in the barracks with your fellow soldiers, and she continues to live in her family's home. The only time you see her is when you can successfully sneak away at night. This is a continuation of the skills you learned as a boy in the Agoge. Remember stealing food? The principle was the same: don't get caught. Now, you are applying that same stealth and cunning to your own marriage. You must slip out of the barracks, navigate the dark, quiet streets of Sparta, and make your way to her house, all without being detected by your superiors or the night patrols. It's a high-stakes game. Being caught would bring not just punishment, but shame. It would suggest you were becoming soft, that you were more devoted to your wife than to your military duties. It would imply a lack of discipline and self-control, the very antithesis of a Spartan warrior. So, every visit is a risk, a small act of rebellion against the 24/7 surveillance of your military life. Imagine the routine. The evening meal in the mess hall ends. You share stories with your comrades. Maintain the facade of normalcy. You wait until the barracks quiet down, until the breathing of the men around you settles into the rhythm of sleep. Then, under the cover of a moonless sky, you slip out. The air is cool on your skin. The familiar paths you ran barefoot as a boy are now your secret routes. Every shadow is a hiding place. Every dog's bark a potential alarm. You arrive at her house. Another challenge: her to get in without waking her family. There must have been systems, quiet signals, an unlocked door. She is your co-conspirator in this domestic espionage. You spend a few hours together in the dark. These meetings are hurried, furtive. The primary purpose remains procreation. The state needs children. But perhaps, in these stolen moments, something else begins to grow. A sense of partnership, of shared secrecy. You are a team, united against the rigid rules that govern your lives. Then, before the first hint of dawn, you must leave. The journey back is just as perilous. You have to be in your bed, feigning sleep, when the barrack stirs to life. You must show no signs of fatigue from your nocturnal adventure. You must participate in the day's brutal training with the same vigor as everyone else. This period could last for years, well into your 20s. Some men fathered several children before they were ever allowed to live with their wives openly. It's a bizarre system, and historians like Plutarch believe they knew the reason behind it. He argued that by making access to one's wife a difficult, real, and risky thing, it kept desire high and prevented couples from becoming bored or overly familiar with each other. It also ensured that the man's primary emotional and social attachments remained with his fellow soldiers in the barracks, not with his wife and family. It was a deliberate break on domesticity. There's a subtle, almost funny detail embedded in this practice. The ancient writer Xenophon, a great admirer of Sparta, noted that because these encounters were so infrequent and occurred while both partners were in their physical prime, the children born from such unions were bound to be more robust and vigorous. It's a classic piece of Spartan logic. Even the structure of your romantic life is a form of state-run animal husbandry. But what about love? What about affection? This is one of the great unanswerable questions of Spartan society. Did love grow in these brief, stolen encounters, or was the entire concept of romantic love as we know it simply alien to them? It's a topic of endless debate. Perhaps the shared danger and secrecy forged a bond that was stronger than any public courtship could have. In the quiet darkness of her room, away from the prying eyes of the state, you are not just a soldier and she is not just a vessel for procreation. You are two people in a secret alliance, building a family one clandestine visit at a time. And this strange, fragmented beginning will define your relationship for years to come. Even though you are now a married man, your true home is not with your wife. It is a stark, functional hole filled with the smell of sweat, black broth, and damp wool. This is the SYS city at the common mess Holland. It is the central pillar of your adult life. Membership in one of these dining clubs is mandatory. If you fail to get elected into one, or if you are ever kicked out, you lose your citizenship. It is that serious. At around age 20, you and your cohort of Agoge graduates must be accepted into one of these clubs. The process is a nerve-wracking secret ballot. You stand before the existing members, veteran soldiers, men you have looked up to your entire life. A servant walks around the room with a container. Each member takes a piece of bread, and either passes it through their hand untouched to signal yes, or squeezes it into a flattened, doughy mess to signal no. One single no vote is enough to deny you entry. It's a brutal system of peer review. You are being judged on your entire history, your performance in the Agoge, your courage, your discipline, your character. You pass the vote. A wave of relief washes over you. You are in. This horde is now your family. These 15 or so men are your brothers. You will eat every meal with them, every single day, for the next 40 years, until you are 60 years old and released from military service. Your wife and children will always come second to this group. The atmosphere is a strange mix of formal and informal. You recline on wooden couches, a custom shared with other Greeks. But the Spartan version is stripped of all luxury. The conversation is loud, filled with barracks room humor, war stories, and short, laconic jokes. But it's also a place of education. The older men quiz the younger ones on matters of state, on points of custom, on military strategy. It's a continuous, lifelong reinforcement of Spartan values. The food is famously terrible. The signature dish is the malis ziomos, or black broth. Its ingredients were said to be pork, salt, vinegar, and blood. One visitor from Sparta, a city known for its luxury, famously said that after tasting the broth, he understood why Spartans were so willing to die in battle. Whether it was truly as disgusting as outsiders claimed, or if that was part of the Spartan mystique, is hard to say. But it was not meant to be enjoyed, it was meant to sustain. Here's the quirky part of the system: it wasn't free. This wasn't a state-funded cafeteria. Each member of the S3X tier was required to contribute a specific amount of food from his own estate each month. The contribution was precise: a bushel of barley, about 8 gallons of wine, 5 pounds of cheese, 2.5 pounds of figs, and a small amount of money to buy meat or fish. This was a crucial test. Your land, which was worked by state-owned serfs called helots, had to be productive enough to supply your monthly dues. If you suffered a bad harvest, if your plot of land couldn't produce the required amount, you were out. And if you were out of the mess hall, you were stripped of your rights as an equal citizen. It was a constant economic pressure that ensured only the productive landowners remained in the elite class. This economic requirement is a detail that historians are still piecing together. How was it managed? What happened if a man had a temporary shortfall? Were there exceptions? The system seems incredibly rigid, and some scholars argue that this very rigidity was a major factor in Sparta's eventual decline, as more and more citizens lost their status due to an inability to pay their dues. You sat there, night after night, listening to the stories, answering the questions, sharing this unappetizing meal. You look at the faces around you. The man who was your mentor in the Agoge might be here. The boys you grew up with, the ones you brawled with and stole food with, are here. These are the men you will fight alongside. The man whose life you will save in battle, and the man who will save yours. Your loyalty to them is absolute, forged over decades of shared hardship. When you sneak out later to visit your wife, it feels like you are leaving one world and entering another. The loud, boisterous, all-male world of the mess hall, and the quiet, secret, domestic world of your marriage. The S3X city is your public family, your source of status, your entire social universe. Your wife and the home she manages are your private concern. The state has successfully engineered your lives so that your most powerful bonds are horizontal, with your peers, rather than vertical, with your own family. And this division will shape every aspect of your personal life for decades to come. As you settle into the rhythm of your double life, a soldier by day, a secret husband by night, the true purpose of your marriage becomes increasingly clear. It's not about you. It's not about your wife. It's about the state. You are a key player in Sparta's most critical industry, baby production. The city-state of Sparta is a pyramid. At the very top is a small, exclusive class of citizen soldiers, the homo-io-io-io, the equals. That's you. Below you are the perio-iteo-iteo-iteo, the dwellers around, who are free non-citizens, craftsmen, merchants, and farmers living in the surrounding towns. And at the very bottom, forming the vast base of the pyramid, are the helots, the state-owned serfs who work your land and have virtually no rights. Your entire privileged existence is dependent on keeping the helot population suppressed, and that requires a constant supply of elite soldiers. Your marriage is a contract with the state to help maintain this supply chain. The Spartan founder, the legendary Lycurgus, is credited with designing the entire system with this one goal in mind. He saw procreation not as a private matter, but as a public service of the highest order. Your wife is not just your partner, she is a public servant, and her womb is a state resource. This idea is deeply embedded in the social fabric. You see it everywhere. Bachelors, for instance, are publicly shamed during certain religious festivals. They are forced to march in a circle, naked, in the dead of winter, singing a song about how they deserve this punishment for disobeying the laws of marriage. They are also subject to ridicule from younger men and are not afforded the usual respect given to elders. In a society obsessed with honor, this is a profound humiliation. Remaining unmarried is seen as a selfish dereliction of duty. The pressure to have children is immense, and specifically, to have male children. A son will follow you into the Agoge and the army, securing your family's legacy and contribution to the state. A daughter is valuable as a future mother, but sons are the primary prize. This is not unique to Sparta. of course, but the state's investment in the outcome makes the pressure feel more direct. And here's a quirky, almost cold-blooded custom that demonstrates this state-first mentality. A man who had 3 sons was exempt from routine military watch duties. A man who had 4 sons was exempt from all taxes and public burdens entirely. This was a state-sponsored incentive program for procreation. It's a system of rewards that has nothing to do with being a good husband or a loving father, and everything to do with being a productive breeder for Sparta. This is where the role of your wife truly shines, in a way that was unique in the ancient world, because her contribution producing healthy children is so vital. She is afforded a level of respect and honor that other Greek women could only dream of. The most famous example of this is the Spartan rule about gravestones. Most Spartans, no matter how heroic, were buried in unmarked graves. Anonymity in death was the ultimate expression of collectivism. But there were 2 exceptions. A man could get his name on a gravestone only if he died in battle, and a woman could get her name on a gravestone only if she died in childbirth. Think about that for a moment. In the eyes of the state, the sacrifice of a woman dying while trying to create a new Spartan life was equivalent to the sacrifice of a man dying while defending Sparta. The 2 acts were seen as parallel contributions to the city's survival. Childbirth was a woman's battlefield. This is a powerful statement about her value. The extent to which the state intervened in marriage is a point historians continue to explore. Did the state actively pair people up, or did it just create a system of incentives and punishments that guided people's private choices in the desired direction? The sources suggest it was more the latter, a system of social engineering rather than direct commands. But the effect was the same. Every decision you make about your family life is made with the state looking over your shoulder. So, when you slip away from the barracks at night, you are not just visiting a loved one. You are reporting for duty. You are fulfilling your most fundamental obligation to the city. Your relationship is framed not by love poems and romantic gestures, but by public expectations and civic responsibility. You and your wife are partners in a state's ancient enterprise, and the success of that enterprise, the birth of a healthy child, is a victory not just for your small, secret family, but for all of Sparta. You've been married for a few years now. You have a child, maybe 2. You're a respected soldier, a full member of your SYS city. Your life is stable, predictable, governed by the rigid Spartan routine. One day, a neighbor, a man from your dining club, a comrade you trust with your life on the battlefield, approaches you. He has a strange and delicate request. His own marriage has been childless. He is a good man, a strong warrior, but he has failed to produce an heir. He looks at your wife, a woman known for her health and vitality, and at your strong, healthy children. He asks for your permission to marry your wife. He is not asking for an affair. He is not asking to break up your home. He is asking for your wife to bear him a child, who will then be raised as his own legal heir. And in the logic of Spartan society, this is not a scandalous proposition. It is a practical solution to a serious problem. This is the practice of wife sharing, and it is one of the most jarring and misunderstood Spartan customs. To an outsider like an Athenian, it sounded like utter moral chaos, but within Sparta, it was governed by a clear, utilitarian logic. The primary goal of any marriage was to produce strong children for the state. If a marriage failed to achieve that goal, then personal emotional attachments had to be set aside for the greater good. Think of it from your neighbor's perspective. He is in danger of losing his kale arrows, his plot of ancestral land, because he has no son to inherit it. Without an heir, his family line ends, and his property reverts to the state. This is not just a personal tragedy, it is a loss for Sparta, as his valuable estate might fall out of citizen hands. Furthermore, he is failing in his civic duty to procreate. So the system allowed for a pragmatic workaround. An older man with a young wife might encourage her to have a child with a younger, more vigorous man, or in your case, A man with a proven record of producing healthy offspring. You might be asked to lend his fertile soil, as the ancients might have put it. The child born of this arrangement would not be considered yours. It would belong entirely to your neighbor. Legally and socially, it would carry his name and inherit his property. Your role was simply that of a biological contributor, performing a service for a friend and for the state. The decision was yours. As the husband, your consent was required. It was also a decision for your wife. Spartan women, being in charge of the household and respected for their judgment, would have had a significant say in the matter. It would not have been a command, but a negotiation. This is where the Spartan concept of jealousy and ownership becomes so alien to our modern sensibilities. The legendary Spartan lawgiver Lycurgus, according to the historian Xenophon, mocked the men of other nations who jealously guarded their wives and locked them away, yet were perfectly happy to secretly have affairs. Lycurgus, he argued, believed it was foolish for men to raise children who might be of inferior stock when they could, through an open and honest arrangement, produce a superior child with a more suitable partner. He wanted to apply the principles of selective breeding, used for dogs and horses, to the human population. How common was this practice? That's a question historians are still debating. Was it a widespread, everyday occurrence? Or was it a rare solution for extreme cases of infertility or significant age gaps? The ancient sources present it as a logical feature of the system, but they don't give us statistics. It was likely more of a socially accepted option than a frequent event, a safety valve to ensure the demographic health of the citizen class. Imagine the conversation, the quiet request from your comrade, the discussion you have with your wife later. There is no sense of betrayal or infidelity. The motivations are entirely public-spirited: to help a friend, to strengthen the state, to produce another good Spartan. It reframes the entire concept of a relationship. Your wife is not your property. Your marriage is not an exclusive emotional bond. You are both, first and foremost, assets of the state, and your reproductive capabilities are part of that asset pool, to be deployed in the most logical and efficient way possible. It is a strange, selfless, and deeply impersonal way to think about the most personal aspects of life. And for you, as a Spartan, it simply makes sense. You lie on your reed bed in the barracks, the sounds of sleeping soldiers around you. You've just returned from a secret visit to your wife. Perhaps you have a son now, a boy who passed the elders' inspection. Perhaps you've agreed to let your comrade borrow your wife to give him an heir. Your life is full of relationships with your comrades, your mentor, your wife, your children, but you start to wonder about the feeling that other Greeks write poems about. What, in this rigid world, is love? The word itself feels foreign. So, it's not a concept that's discussed in the mess hall. You don't hear it in the patriotic songs you sing. The virtues you are taught are courage, discipline, loyalty, and endurance. Love is not on the list. Affection is expressed through shared hardship and mutual respect, not through tender words or gestures. Think about your bond with your messmates. You would die for any one of them without a second thought. You know their strengths, their weaknesses, the sound of their voice shouting next to you in a battle drill. Is this love? It's a powerful, all-encompassing loyalty, a sense of belonging to a pack. The Greeks had a word for this philia, a kind of brotherly love, a deep friendship. This, for you, is the primary emotional connection in your life. It's the bedrock of the phalanx and the foundation of your social world. It's reliable, functional, and necessary for survival. Then there's the relationship with your mentor, the Aristas from your youth. The bond was intense, formative, built on admiration and a desire to prove your worth. It was a kind of heroic love, focused on shaping you into the ideal Spartan man. Even now, as an adult, you feel a deep sense of respect and obligation to him. The nature of that love, whether it was purely pedagogical or something more, remains a point of academic fascination. Some scholars, looking at the broader Greek context, argue that a physical component was almost certainly present, while others, citing Spartan-friendly sources like Xenophon, insist on its chaste, educational nature. The truth for you is your own experience, likely unspoken and undefined, simply a part of the system that made you who you are. And what about your wife? You share a secret world with her. You are co-conspirators in your own marriage. You rely on her to manage your estate, to raise your children, to be the bedrock of a home you barely inhabit. You admire her strength, her wit, her devotion to Spartan ideals. Is this love? It's a partnership, a deep and abiding alliance. The Greeks might call this streetward, a familial love, a fondness built on familiarity and dependency. But the passionate, all-consuming eros that Athenian playwrights dramatize seems dangerously out of place here. In short, passionate love is treated with suspicion. A man who is seen to be excessively doting on his wife, who spends too much time with her, is viewed as weak. He is failing to properly prioritize his duties to the state and his comrades. The entire structure of your marriage, with its secret beginnings and your separate living arrangements, is designed to prevent this kind of intense, romantic attachment from forming. Passion is disruptive. It privatizes emotion. It makes a man think of his own happiness instead of the collective good, and that is a threat to the Spartan system. Here's a small, telling detail. Spartan men and women didn't typically wear wedding rings. The material symbols of a union that were common in other cultures were absent. Your marriage was a fact, a duty, not something to be advertised with jewelry. Your status came from being a soldier and a member of the S3X City, not from being a husband. So you are left to navigate this emotional landscape without a map. You feel powerful bonds, but they are compartmentalized. There is the fierce loyalty to your brothers in arms, the respectful devotion to your mentor, and the pragmatic, allied affection for your wife. Each relationship has its own purpose, its own set of unwritten rules. Love isn't a single, overwhelming feeling. It's a series of distinct, functional attachments, each one carefully calibrated to serve the needs of the state. Perhaps for you, love is simply the quiet pride you feel when you hear your son is excelling in his Agoge training, or the silent understanding that passes between you and your wife when you meet in the dark. It's not a grand passion. It's a quiet, steady, and deeply practical force that holds your strange world together. It's love, Spartan style, and in this place, it's the only kind that's allowed to exist. For the first decade of your marriage, and possibly longer, your home is a place you only visit as a guest. You are a ghost who slips in and out under the cover of darkness. The person who truly runs that home, who manages your ancestral land, who oversees the helots, and who makes the crucial day-to-day decisions, is your wife. While you are away in the barracks, drilling, training, and eating in the men's mess, she is the master of the estate. This is one of the most radical aspects of Spartan society and the source of endless astonishment for other Greeks. In Athens, a respectable woman was confined to the Gynecea, the women's quarters of the house. Her life was one of domestic seclusion. A Spartan woman, by contrast, is a powerful and public figure. You see the results of her work every month. The barley, wine, cheese, and figs that you must contribute to your S3X city to maintain your citizenship. The contribution comes from the land she manages. Your social survival is literally in her hands. If she mismanages the estate, if the helots don't produce enough, you are the one who faces the public shame of being expelled from the mess hall and losing your status. This gives her enormous, indirect power over your public life. Her domain is the oikos, the household. This includes not just the house itself, but the land, the livestock, and, most importantly, the helots who work it. She directs their labor, ensuring the fields are plowed, sown, and harvested. She manages the storerooms, rationing supplies for the household and ensuring your monthly mess hall dues are ready. It's a complex logistical and managerial role, one that required intelligence, authority, and a firm hand. This economic power had a very real foundation. Spartan women were unique in the Greek world because they could legally own and inherit property. It's estimated that by the classical period, women owned somewhere between 1/3 and 2/5 of all the land in Sparta. This was a direct result of their social standing and the inheritance laws. If a woman's father died and she had no living brothers, she could inherit his entire estate. This heiress was known as a pet choice. This gave certain women immense wealth and influence. The extent of this female land ownership is a fact that ancient commentators like Aristotle pointed to with disapproval. He, in his Politics, famously criticized the Spartan system, blaming the license of the women and their control over property for some of Sparta's problems. Whether he was right is a topic historians love to debate, but his complaint reveals just how shocking the situation was to an outsider. For an Athenian man, the idea of women controlling that much wealth and power was a sign of a society in disarray. Imagine coming home, or rather, visiting your home and finding your wife deep in conversation with the foreman of your helot workforce, discussing crop rotation. She might inform you that a certain olive grove was underperforming, or that a new batch of wine was ready. You are the warrior, the public face of the family, but she is the CEO. This power dynamic creates a very different kind of marital relationship. It's one built on mutual dependence and respect for each other's domain. You are the Minister of Defense, she is the Minister of the Interior and Treasury. You protect the state from external threats, she ensures the economic engine of your family, which is the microcosm of the state, continues to run. This is why Spartan women were famous for their confidence and outspokenness. They weren't just allowed to speak their minds, they were expected to. Their opinions on matters of the household, wealth, and even the education of their children carried immense weight. When you finally move in with her, you will not be moving in as the undisputed master of the house stepping into his domain. You will be a cohabitant, entering a world that she has been successfully running on her own for years. It's a partnership of equals, forged not in romance, but in the shared, practical business of maintaining a Spartan household, and in the rigidly patriarchal world of ancient Greece. That is perhaps the most revolutionary thing of all. Life in Sparta is dictated by the laws of Lycurgus, a set of rigid, unwritten rules that govern every aspect of your existence. You marry one woman, you live in the barracks, you contribute to your mess. It is the only way. But then, you hear a story. A piece of high-level gossip that ripples through the SYS city. It's about one of your kings, and he has 2 wives. Sparta is a strange diarchy, ruled by 2 kings simultaneously, from 2 different royal families, the Aegiads and the Eurypontids. They are not absolute monarchs, their power is checked by the elders, the Gerusi, and the elected officials, the Ephors. Still, they are the commanders-in-chief, the chief priests, and the most revered men in the state. They are supposed to be the ultimate embodiment of Spartan law. The story you hear is about King Anaxandridas II, who ruled in the 6th century BCE. His wife, whom he reportedly loved, was barren. For years, they had no children. This presented a constitutional crisis. A king without an heir was a threat to the stability of his royal line and the state itself. The Spartan state is all about continuity. The Ephors, the 5 elected officials who held immense power, approached the king. Their solution was stark and practical. They told him he must divorce his wife and marry another to produce an heir. It was a direct order, a clash between the king's personal feelings and his public duty. But Anaxandridas refused. He would not cast off his wife. This is a fascinating moment because it's a rare glimpse of what looks like genuine affection clashing with Spartan pragmatism. The king is defying the system for a reason that sounds almost romantic. The Ephors, however, are not sentimental. They need an heir, so they come back with a compromise. A solution that is utterly bizarre and unprecedented. They told the king, all right, keep your wife. We will not force you to divorce her. But you must take a second wife, simultaneously. We will even pick her out for you from a suitable family. You will maintain 2 separate households. You will have 2 wives. This was a complete violation of Spartan custom. Monogamy was the rule for everyone. But the need for a royal heir was so great that the EP whores were willing to bend the very laws of their society to achieve it. And so, King Anaxandridas becomes a bigamist. His second wife quickly gives birth to a son, the future famous King Clemen's Eye. But then, in a twist of fate that must have caused a great deal of awkward conversation, his first, supposedly barren wife also becomes pregnant and gives birth to a son, Dorius. The king suddenly has 2 families and a complicated succession problem. This story, recorded by the historian Herodotus, is fascinating for what it reveals about Spartan society. First, it shows that even the strictest rules could be broken when the interests of the state were at stake. The law was not an abstract, divine command, it was a tool to ensure Spartan survival, and it could be modified if necessary. The pragmatism of the EP whores overrode centuries of tradition. Second, it gives us that rare hint of personal feeling within the Spartan elite. The king's refusal to divorce his first wife is a crack in the facade of cold emotionals as duty. The exact nature of his feelings, love, loyalty, pity is something historians can only speculate about. But his actions speak volumes. This tale is a classic exception that proves the rule. The very fact that it was recorded by Herodotus as a strange and noteworthy event tells you how unusual it was. No one else was allowed 2 wives. It was a royal prerogative, born of a crisis. It demonstrates the immense pressure on all Spartans, from the lowest citizen to the king himself, to produce children. And it shows that when faced with a choice between tradition and necessity, Spartan leaders would almost always choose necessity. You hear this story and it reinforces your understanding of the world. The rules are everything, until they are not. Your life is governed by a strict code. But even that code can be rewritten by the powerful men at the top if the situation demands it. It's a lesson in the ultimate pragmatism that lies at the heart of the Spartan machine. The years have been ticking by. You are no longer the young man sneaking through the streets at night. You are now 30 years old. Your face is weathered. Your body carries the signature scars of a Spartan warrior. And you might have 2 or 3 children who barely know you as a daily presence. And then, you reach the milestone you've been waiting for. At the age of 30, you are finally released from the obligation of living full-time in the barracks. You are allowed to move home. This is a massive transition, a fundamental shift in your life. For the first time since you were 7 years old, you will have a home that is not a communal, all-male institution. You will live under the same roof as your wife and children. You are about to begin a normal family life, Spartan style. But what does normal even mean at this point? You are, in many ways, a stranger in your own house. You are entering a domestic world that your wife has managed single-handedly for a decade. She knows the rhythms of the household, the personalities of the helots, the state of the finances. You are the newcomer. The power dynamic is not one of a husband returning to take charge, but of a partner being integrated into an existing, functioning system. Your children see you as a figure of authority, a distant hero perhaps, but not as a constant, nurturing presence. You now have to build a relationship with them day by day. You see your son, who is already in the Agoge, and you recognize the same hardness and discipline being forged in him that was forged in you. You see your daughter, strong and athletic, and you understand her future role in this society. Your relationship with them is not based on coddling or overt affection, but on embodying the Spartan virtues you hope to instill in them. Even though you now live at home, your primary obligation is still to the SYS city. You are not free from it. Every single day, you must still leave your house and go to the mess hall for your main evening meal. You cannot just decide to have a quiet family dinner instead. Your attendance is mandatory. The mess hall remains the center of your social and political life until you are 60, so while you sleep at home, your days and evenings are still spent with your comrades. Domestic life is something that fits into the gaps of your military duty. This arrangement is, once again, a deliberate piece of social engineering. By keeping you tethered to the mess hall, the state ensures that your primary loyalties remain with your fellow soldiers. It prevents you from going soft, from becoming too engrossed in the comforts of family life. The S3X acts as a permanent anchor, keeping you firmly moored in the world of male martial culture. Historians often debate the emotional impact of this transition. After 23 years of communal living, was it a relief to finally have some privacy, or was it a difficult adjustment? You've been conditioned to live in a pack. The sudden relative quiet of a private home might feel strange, even isolating. The constant companionship, the easy camaraderie, the political discussions of the mess hall, that is your natural environment. Your home is a place you share with your wife and children. But the barracks and the mess hall are where you truly belong. Here's a small, practical detail to consider. The houses in Sparta were not ostentatious. Lycurgus's laws supposedly dictated that the ceilings could only be worked with an axe, and the doors only with a saw. The aim was to discourage luxury and promote a simple, functional lifestyle. So your new home is not a palace of comfort. It's a simple, sturdy structure, designed for utility, not for pleasure. It's just another reflection of the Spartan ethos. As you settle into this new phase of life, you are a man torn between two worlds. You have the responsibilities of a husband and father at home, and the lifelong obligations of a soldier and comrade in the mess hall. You have one foot in the domestic sphere and one foot firmly planted in the military one. This is what it means to be a full Spartan citizen in your prime. You are no longer just a soldier in training, you are now a pillar of the state, expected to produce children, manage your estate, and be ready for battle at a moment's notice. The training is over, but the service is for life. You are now a man in your 30s or 40s, living at home, a soldier, a husband, but the ghost of the Agoge never leaves you. The habits, the mindset, and most importantly, the relationships forged in that brutal school continue to dominate your life. The most powerful emotional bonds you have are still with the men you grew up with. The S3X is the formal continuation of this bond, the daily ritual that reaffirms your place in the collective. But the connections run deeper than a shared meal. The man who was your mentor, your hostess, is now a senior figure in the mess hall. The respect and deference you owe him are lifelong. He might be a member of the JRCIA, or a commander in the army. Your history with him is a permanent part of your social identity. And what of the boy you were? The aid as the passionate mentorship of your youth has mellowed into a mature, respectful friendship, but the echoes of that old hierarchy remain. This is the Spartan version of an old boys' network, an intricate web of alliances and loyalties that began in the barracks. These relationships influence everything: who gets chosen for special missions, who is supported in a political dispute, who you can count on when the shield wall breaks. This lifelong, intense male bonding is a cornerstone of Spartan military success. When you stand in the phalanx, the man to your left is not a stranger. H.E.S. the boy you stole cheese with, the man you've eaten with every day for 20 years. His honor is your honor. His life is in your hands. This is why the band Sacred Band, another famous Greek military unit composed of pairs of male lovers, was so formidable. They were fighting for something more than a city, they were fighting for the person standing next to them. The Spartans took this principle and applied it to their entire citizen body. But this deep-seated homosocial culture has a profound effect on your marriage. Your wife understands and accepts it. She was raised in the same system. She knows that your primary emotional world exists outside the home. She does not expect you to be her main confidant or companion. Her social life is with other Spartan women. Yours is with the men of your mess. Your lives run on parallel tracks that intersect at home. The nature of these enduring male bonds is, once again, a subject of intense academic debate. Did the physical intimacy that may or may not have existed in the Agoge continue into adulthood? The ancient sources are largely silent on this. Most historical consensus suggests that once a man married, Any physical relationship with another male was expected to cease. Marriage and procreation were your duty now. However, the emotional intensity of these male friendships remained. This is where things get complicated for a modern observer. In your world, a deep, lifelong, emotionally profound relationship with another man is not seen as a threat to your marriage. In fact, it's a prerequisite for being a good Spartan. Your capacity for loyalty, which is the highest virtue, is proven first among men, and then extended to the state. Your wife is a partner in this endeavor, not a competitor for your affections. Here's a peculiar detail that highlights this male-centric world. When a Spartan man traveled, he could go to any other Spartan's home and be treated as an honored guest. He was entitled to use his host's provisions, servants, and even his dogs as if they were his own. This was called dinia, the Greek concept of guest friendship. But the Spartans practiced a particularly robust version of it. It created a sense of a single, unified household among the entire citizen class. Your primary family was not your nuclear family, it was the whole body of Homo IOIOIO. So your life settles into a pattern. You manage your duties at home. You interact with your wife and children. But your true community, the place where you are most yourself, remains the mess hall. The jokes, the arguments, the shared memories, the bonds forged in hardship, this is the emotional core of your existence. Your marriage is a practical, unnecessary institution for the continuation of your lineage and the management of your property. Your friendships with men are the source of your strength, your identity, and your place in the world. It's a difficult emotional balance, one that the Spartan state has engineered with meticulous care. You look at your neighbor's household. The wife is strong and capable. But the husband, your comrade, is often away on campaign. One day, you notice that his wife is with child, even though he has been gone for the better part of a year. In any other Greek city, this would be a scandal of epic proportions, a case of blatant adultery that would result in the woman being divorced and disgraced, her lover potentially killed. But here in Sparta, the reaction is complicated. The word adultery in Sparta doesn't mean what it means elsewhere. The concept of moikia, the Greek term for it, was specifically about a man having a secret, illicit affair with another man's wife, thereby potentially passing off a bastard child as a legitimate heir. This was a crime against the husband's property and lineage. But in Sparta, the rules are different because the goal is different. The goal is not to protect a husband's exclusive sexual ownership of his wife. The goal is to produce the best possible children for the state. As you've already seen with the practice of wife sharing, the idea of a woman having a child with a man other than her husband was not, in itself, shameful as long as it was done openly, with the husband's consent, and for the right reasons. So, if your neighbor's wife is pregnant, the first assumption isn't necessarily infidelity. It might be that her husband, before he left, arranged for a worthy fellow Spartan to father a child in his absence. This would be a logical, pragmatic solution to ensure his family line continued even while he was away serving the state. The child would be his, legally and socially. No shame, no scandal. However, secrecy is the key. The crime in Sparta was not the act itself, but its clandestine nature. If a man and a woman were to have a secret affair, driven by lust or passion rather than a eugenic arrangement, that was a problem. It introduced an element of chaos and private desire into a system built on public order, according to some sources. This kind of secret affair was considered deeply disgraceful, but it was also said to be extremely rare. The historian Prudish claims that adultery was simply unknown in Sparta, a boast that is likely an exaggeration, but one that points to a powerful social taboo against secret liaisons. Why would it be so rare? Think about your life. You live in a fishbowl. Your days are spent in public training or in the mess hall. Your nights, for the first decade of your marriage, were spent in a barracks full of your peers. There was simply very little opportunity for the kind of private, secret meetings that an affair requires. Society was structured to prevent it. Furthermore, the motivations for an affair were reduced. If the goal was simply desire, the open and athletic nature of Spartan society, with its public festivals and naked exercises, perhaps lessened the allure of the forbidden. There's a curious anecdote that illustrates the Spartan mindset. A traveler is said to have asked a Spartan man what the punishment for adultery was in his city. The Spartan replied that there were no adulterers in his city. The traveler pressed, "But what if there were?" The Spartan thought for a moment and said, "The offender would have to pay a fine of a bull so large that it could stand on the top of Mount Agoge and drink from the Euphrates river below." The traveler, amazed, said, "But how could there be such a bull?" The Spartan replied, "And how could there be an adulterer in Sparta?" This story is probably fictional, but it's a perfect piece of comic wit that makes a serious point. The crime is not just illegal, it's considered fundamentally illogical, an impossibility within their system. The definition of infidelity, therefore, is a topic that continues to fascinate and puzzle historians. Was Sparta a society of complete sexual freedom, or one of ultimate sexual control? The answer seems to be both. There was freedom from the concepts of jealous ownership and monogamous exclusivity, but this freedom was channeled into a system of totalitarian control where every act was meant to serve the state. You were unfaithful not when you slept with someone else, but when you did it for your own selfish reasons, for passion instead of procreation, in secret instead of in the open. Your body, your desires, your relationships, none of it was truly yours. It was all subject to the needs and the logic of Sparta. In a world where marriage begins with a staged abduction and is defined by civic duty, you might wonder what happens when a union simply doesn't work. What does a Spartan breakup look like? Is it even possible? The answer is yes. But like everything else in Sparta, it was a practical matter, not a dramatic, emotional explosion. Divorce was legal and socially acceptable in Sparta, for both men and women. This, in itself, was not entirely unique in the Greek world, but the reasons and the process had a distinctly Spartan flavor. The most common and accepted reason for a divorce was, unsurprisingly, infertility. Imagine you have been married for years. You've dutifully fulfilled your obligations, but your wife has not conceived a child. This is not just a personal disappointment, it's a public failure. Your primary purpose as a married couple is to produce new citizens. If you cannot do that, the marriage has failed in its core function. In this situation, a man could choose to divorce his wife. There would be no stigma attached to him for this action. He was seen as taking the necessary step to fulfill his duty to the state by finding a new partner. But what about the woman here again? The Spartan system is surprisingly different. A childless wife wasn't necessarily cast out in shame, because the problem could lie with either partner. She might remarry as well, and if she went on to have children with her new husband, her reputation would be fully restored. The focus was on the outcome, not on placing blame. A man could also divorce his wife for other reasons, though the sources are less clear on what was considered a valid cause beyond childlessness. What's more revolutionary is that a woman could also initiate a divorce. This was extremely rare in the rest of Greece, where a woman was essentially the property of her husband. But in Sparta, thanks to their ability to own land and their high social standing, women had more agency. If a woman's husband was abusive, or perhaps if he mismanaged her inherited property, she had grounds to seek a separation. The process itself seems to have been relatively simple. There were no complex court proceedings as you might find in Athens. It was largely a private matter of declaration and separation. The woman would return to her father's home, and any dowry she brought into the marriage would be returned with her. This financial consideration was a powerful protection for the woman, ensuring she was not left destitute. Here's a small detail that shows the pragmatic nature of it all. The children. In the event of a divorce, who got custody? The answer is pure Spartan either. The children belonged to the state. A son was already in the Agoge from age 7, his life dictated by his trainers, not his parents. Younger children might remain with their mother for a time, but their ultimate loyalty and their future path were already determined by the city. The breakup of their parents' marriage was a secondary concern to their primary identity as future Spartans. The case of King Anaxandridas and his two wives gives us a glimpse into the pressures surrounding divorce. The Epihore's first demand was for him to divorce his barren wife. This was the standard, logical move. His refusal was what made the situation so unusual. This tells you that while divorce for infertility was the norm, it wasn't an absolute, ironclad law that could be forced upon someone, at least not a king. This suggests there was still a degree of personal choice involved, a nuance that is often lost in the broad strokes of Spartan law. Historians are still piecing together the finer points of Spartan divorce law from fragmented sources. How often did it happen? Were there disputes over property? How did the community view a divorced man or woman? The evidence is thin. But the picture that emerges is one of a society that treated the dissolution of a marriage with the same lack of sentimentality that it treated its formation. A marriage was a contract with the state. If the contract was not being fulfilled, or if one party was failing in their duties, the contract could be voided. It wasn't about finding happiness or personal fulfillment. It was about function and duty. If a partnership was dysfunctional, the logical Spartan solution was to dissolve it and form a new one that worked. Your entire life has been spent inside the bubble of the homo ioi, the equals. You are a citizen, a soldier, a member of the elite. But, as you go about your days, you are constantly surrounded by people who are not like you. They are the others. The people who make your privileged life possible. And their relationships and family lives are vastly different from your own. The largest group, by far, are the helots. They are not slaves in the traditional sense of being owned by an individual. They are a collective underclass, owned by the state itself and assigned to work the agricultural land, your kaleros. They are bound to the soil, unable to be sold or moved. They are, essentially, serfs. They outnumber the Spartan citizens by a huge margin, perhaps 7 or 10 to 1. This demographic imbalance is the source of Sparta's greatest strength, its professional army, and its greatest fear, a helot rebellion. What was family life like for a helot? It's a question that's difficult to answer because the Spartans who wrote the history didn't care to record it. But we can piece together a picture. Helots were allowed to marry and have families. In fact, it was in the state's interest for them to do so, to create a new generation of laborers. They lived in small communities on the land they worked, forming their own social structures. Unlike you, a helot father wasn't separated from his children. The family unit was likely the core of their existence. However, their lives were lived under constant threat and ritual humiliation. The state actively worked to terrorize them and keep them subjugated. You might have heard of or even participated in the Cryptii, a sort of secret police or death squad made up of the most promising young Spartans. Their mission was to travel the countryside at night and kill any helot they found who seemed too strong, too proud, or a potential leader. This was state-sanctioned murder, designed to keep the helot population terrified and leaderless. Imagine trying to raise a family under such conditions, where your son could be killed simply for looking a man in the eye. Then there are the Perioikoioitoioite, the dwellers around. They live in the towns and villages scattered across Laconia and Messenia, outside of Sparta proper. They are not citizens, so they cannot vote or hold office or be in the Spartan army. But they are not serfs either. They are free. They are the craftsmen who make your weapons. The merchants who trade for goods Sparta cannot produce. The fishermen who supply your mess hall. They run their own communities and manage their own affairs. The family life of a perioikos was likely much closer to that of a typical Greek in another city-state. A man would be the head of his household. Marriages were private affairs, arranged between families. Sons would learn their father's trade. They had a degree of economic freedom and domestic privacy that was completely alien to you. They could accumulate wealth, live in comfortable homes, and raise their children without the direct, daily intervention of the state. Here's a small, Interesting detail about the Perioikeo. They served in the Spartan military, but not as hoplites in the main phalanx. They were often used as auxiliary troops, craftsmen for the army, or rowers in the navy when Sparta had one. This created a strange social dynamic. They fought for Sparta, but they were not Spartans. Their relationship with the state was one of obligation without representation. The exact relationship between Spartans and the Perioikoi is a subject of ongoing historical discussion. Was it a purely exploitative one, with the Spartans dominating their neighbors, or was it a more symbiotic relationship, a mutually beneficial arrangement where the Perioikoi gained the protection of the Spartan army in exchange for their goods and services? The truth is likely somewhere in the middle. As you walk through the outskirts of Sparta, or travel on campaign, you see these other lives. You see the Helot family working in the fields, their heads down, their movements weary. You see the Perioikoi in their workshops, hammering bronze or shaping pottery. Their worlds are so close to yours, yet so fundamentally different. They have a form of family life, of privacy, of personal enterprise that you have been trained to see as a weakness. Their existence is a constant reminder of what your life is not, and a justification for the brutal system that keeps you at the top. You are a Spartan, and your identity is defined just as much by what you are as by what you are not. From the day you were born, two powerful forces have shaped you: the state and your mother. The state took you, trained you, and owns your loyalty. But it was your mother who prepared you for the state. Her influence, though exercised in a very different way from that of an Athenian mother, is profound and inescapable. The Spartan mother is a figure of legend, a stereotype of the tough, unfeeling woman who cares more for honor than for her own child. The famous phrase, "Come back with your shield," or on it, encapsulates this ethos. But to see her as merely cold is to miss the point. Her love is expressed not through tenderness, but through the institution of Spartan virtue. Her job is to make you hard, to make you brave, to ensure you will never shame your family or the state. You remember her from your early childhood. She didn't coddle you. She didn't sing you soft lullabies. She told you stories of Spartan heroes. When you cried, she admonished you for your lack of self-control. This wasn't cruelty in her eyes. It was the greatest love she could offer. She was preparing you to survive the Agoge, a world that would have no pity for a soft boy. Now that you are an adult, her role in your life has changed, but her influence remains. She is the matriarch of the family. As a Spartan woman, she likely owns property in her own right and has a powerful voice in household decisions. She is a respected figure in the community. When she speaks, people listen, including you. Her judgment, her sharp laconic wit, her unwavering commitment to Spartan ideals, are a constant presence. Her relationship with your wife is not one of a meddling mother-in-law, but more like a senior commander to a junior officer. They are partners in the same great enterprise, managing the family's contribution to the state. Your mother would have instilled in your wife the same values she instilled in you. There is a continuity of female power and responsibility that passes down through the generations. One of the most powerful and perhaps darkest expressions of a Spartan mother's influence was her role as the ultimate enforcer of honor. Stories abound of mothers who reacted to their sons' cowardice with horrifying severity. One tale tells of a mother who, upon hearing that her son had fled from battle, killed him with her own hands, declaring that an unworthy son was no son of hers. Another story, perhaps more believable, is of the mother of a deserter who simply said to him, "Did you not run here from the battle to tell us the news?" A cutting remark that would be a sentence of social death. Whether these stories of maternal execution are literal is a subject of debate among historians. They may be exaggerations. Moral tales designed to illustrate the extreme nature of Spartan values for an outside audience. But they reveal a fundamental truth: a mother's pride was tied directly to her son's courage. She would rather see you dead on your shield than alive and disgraced. Your honor was her honor. Here's a small, poignant detail that reveals the other side of this coin. While mothers rejected cowards, they celebrated their dead heroes with a striking stoicism. The historian Plutarch tells of the women after a great battle. The mothers of the fallen would go out, proudly checking their sons' wounds to ensure they were on the front of the body, a sign of facing the enemy and not the back. They would then carry their sons' bodies for a heroic burial, their faces filled with pride. The mothers of the survivors, meanwhile, were said to stand aside in silence, almost ashamed. It's a complete inversion of what we would consider a natural emotional response. This fierce, demanding, and powerful maternal influence is the hidden engine of the Spartan state. The men fight the battles, but the women create the men. They are the gatekeepers of honor, the first teachers of discipline, the unyielding guardians of the Spartan code. Your relationship with your mother is not one of gentle comfort. It is one of respect, awe, and perhaps a little bit of fear. She is the living embodiment of Sparta, and her approval is the one thing you will seek your entire life. The years continue to pass. You are in your 40s, maybe approaching 50. You have fulfilled your primary duty to the state. You have produced children. Your sons are either well into their Agoge training, or are now young men fighting alongside you. Your daughters are married, producing the next generation of Spartans. The frantic, state-mandated urgency for procreation that defined the first part of your marriage begins to fade. Your life enters a new season. What does a Spartan relationship look like after the child-rearing years are over? It becomes, in many ways, a partnership in legacy and management. The intense focus on procreation is replaced by a focus on maintaining the family status and wealth. You and your wife are now a team in a different sense. You are the senior members of your household, overseeing its long-term health. Her role as the manager of the oikos is as crucial as ever, but now her experience is deep. She has navigated decades of harvests, managed the Helot workforce through good times and bad, and ensured your SYS City contributions were always met. Your respect for her competence is absolute. Your conversations might shift from the health of your children to the health of your estate. You discuss the marriage prospects for a younger daughter, or which of your sons shows the most promise to become a leader. You are co-guardians of the family's place in the rigid Spartan hierarchy. With the pressure of procreation lifted, does a different kind of intimacy emerge? This is one of the most speculative areas for historians, as our sources are almost entirely silent on the private lives of older Spartan couples. It's possible that with the main job of the marriage completed, a comfortable companionship, a form of failure or deep friendship, could finally blossom, having navigated the strange, fragmented early years of marriage and the demanding middle years of raising a family for the state. You might now find a quiet, shared rhythm. You still eat your evening meal at the mess hall. Of course, that obligation is for life until you turn 60. But you are now one of the senior men there. Your voice carries more weight. You are no longer being quizzed, you are the one asking the questions, passing on the wisdom and the traditions to the younger generation. Your wife, similarly, is a senior woman in her own social circles, a matriarch whose opinion is sought by younger women. You are both elders in training. Here's a peculiar detail to consider about aging in Sparta. Your value to the state changes, but it doesn't disappear. A man over 60, released from military service, could be elected to the Jerusalem, the council of 30 elders that held enormous judicial and political power. It was a position of immense prestige, the crowning achievement of a Spartan life. So even in old age, your life is still oriented towards public service. Your retirement is just a different kind of work. What about desire and attraction in these later years? Spartan culture, with its emphasis on the athletic, toned body, was very much a body culture, but it was a culture that valued function over aesthetics. A body was beautiful because it was strong and capable. How did this translate to aging? The ancient sources don't tell us much about Spartan attitudes towards the aging body. It's a fascinating gap in our knowledge. Did the respect for an elder's wisdom and a life of service replace the admiration for physical prime? We can only guess. The level to which Spartan society valued its elders politically suggests that respect certainly grew with age. But whether this translated into the personal relationship is a question lost to time. Your relationship with your wife becomes a testament to survival and endurance. You have survived the Agoge. She has survived the trials of childbirth, a battlefield. Together, you have navigated a social system designed to pull you apart. You have raised children who are now cogs in the same machine. You have maintained your land and your status. Your bond is not forged in whispered sweet nothings, but in the shared accomplishment of a life lived according to the harsh Spartan code. It is a partnership etched not with passion, but with the deep, quiet lines of duty fulfilled. Throughout your life, from the inspection at birth to the nightly mess hall dinner, your world is governed by the laws of Agoge and the will of the state. But there is another, older power that permeates everything, the will of the gods. Religion in Sparta is not a quiet, private faith. It is a public, practical, and deeply serious affair, woven into the very fabric of your relationships and your duty to procreate. Your quest for strong, healthy children is not just a matter of eugenics, it's also a matter of divine favor. You and your wife participate in numerous religious festivals and rituals throughout the year, many of which are directly aimed at promoting fertility and ensuring the health of the next generation. One of the most important deities for your family is Artemis or Thea. Her sanctuary is a place you know well from your youth. It's where you and your fellow boys attempted to steal cheeses from the altar while being whipped. A brutal rite of passage. But Artemis or Thea is not just a goddess of trials, she is a complex figure, a patron of wild nature, childbirth, and the transition of children into adulthood. You and your wife would make offerings at her shrine, praying for healthy pregnancies, unsafe deliveries. Then there is the Cornia, one of Sparta's most important annual festivals, held in late summer. It's a complex, multi-day event that involves feasting, music, and ritual races. For 9 days, all military activity ceases. The entire state is focused on this religious observance. One of the central rituals involved a kind of catch-the-prophet game. A young man, adorned with garlands, would run away after praying to the gods for the good of the city. He would be pursued by a group of other young, unmarried men. If they caught him, it was a good omen for the city in the coming year. If they failed, it was a bad omen. This ritual, deeply tied to prophecy and the city's fortune, was also connected to the fertility of the land and its people. Your participation was a civic and religious duty. Here's a specific, rather strange ritual that directly links to procreation. At a place called Agoge, there was a major festival for Apollo and the local hero god, Agoge. During this festival, there were rites in which unmarried girls were temporarily secluded, and others in which they took part in processions and dances. Some scholars believe these rituals were symbolic preparations for marriage, a way of spiritually readying young women for their role as child-bearers. The exact meaning of many of these rites is lost to us, a source of ongoing debate for historians of religion, but their connection to fertility in the life cycle is clear. You don't just pray for children, you pray for a specific kind of child. You pray for a son who will be a warrior, a daughter who will be a mother of warriors. The gods are seen as partners in the Spartan project. A healthy baby is not just a sign of your own good stock, but a sign that the gods approve of you and of Sparta. Conversely, a stillbirth or a child born with a defect could be interpreted as a sign of divine displeasure. This religious worldview provides a powerful layer of justification for the harshness of your society. The culling of unfit infants at the Apo the Tay, it could be framed not just as a practical decision, but as fulfilling the will of the gods, who clearly did not favor this child with strength. Your marriage, your children, your entire family structure is not just a social contract, but a sacred duty. The 2 kings of Sparta are your chief priests. Before any major decision, before going to war, they must perform sacrifices and read the omens. The gods must approve. This intertwining of military, political, and religious authority is absolute. When you march into battle, you are not just fighting for Sparta, you are fighting with the gods of Sparta on your side. So when you and your wife hope for a child, you are not alone in that hope. You are part of a city-wide, year-long effort to secure divine favor. Your personal desire for a healthy heir is perfectly aligned with the public religious rituals of the state. Your prayers are not for personal happiness, but for a strong son who can hold a shield, for a healthy daughter who can bear one, and for the continued blessing of the gods on the strange, brutal, and pious world you call home. In your world, there is no greater virtue than courage and no greater sin than cowardice. The entire system, from your birth inspection to the Agoge to the S3X city, is designed to cultivate the former and eliminate the latter. But what happens when the system fails? What happens to a man who, in the heat of battle, loses his nerve? You call him a tres as a trembler, and his fate is a kind of living death, a public and systematic unpersoning. Imagine you are in the phalanx. The enemy is charging. The noise is deafening, the clash of bronze, the screams of men. The man next to you, someone you have trained with your whole life, suddenly drops his shield and runs. He has survived the battle, but he has forfeited his life as a Spartan. When he returns to the city, his punishment begins. It is not a quick execution. It is a slow, grinding, and deeply personal humiliation. He is immediately mocked. He must wear distinctive, patched clothing to signify his shame. He must shave only half of his beard, a ridiculous, visible sign of his broken status. He is an outcast, a walking billboard of his own dishonor. His social life is utterly destroyed. He is barred from the S3X city, which means he loses his citizenship. He can no longer hold any public office. No one will exercise with him in the gymnasium, in the choral dances at festivals. He is driven to the most ignominious spot, on the streets. Any man who meets him can strike him without fear of reprisal. He is fair game. But the punishment cuts deepest in the realm of family and relationships. No respectable Spartan family will allow their daughter to marry him. He is a genetic dead end, a carrier of the cowardice contagion. If he is already married, his wife would be expected to divorce him to save the family from his shame. His own relatives are expected to disown him. His mother, who once told him to come back with his shield door on it, now sees him alive, without his shield, and is filled with a cold fury. He has betrayed everything she raised him to be. This is where the social pressure becomes unbearable. He is not just an individual failure, he is a source of shame for his entire family. His children, if he has any, will be tainted by his disgrace. His brothers will have to bear the stigma. The dishonor is a stain that spreads. Historians debate the exact legal mechanics of this punishment. Was it an official sentence handed down by the EP horse? Or was it a more organic, community-enforced shunning the sources? Like Xenophon, describe it as a set of customs that everyone understood and participated in. It was a form of social control that required no jail cells or executioners. The community itself was the prison and the punishment. There was, however, a path to redemption, though it was narrow and difficult. Atreus could volunteer for what was essentially a suicide mission, a chance to prove his courage by throwing himself into the most dangerous part of the next battle. If he fought with conspicuous bravery and survived, he could, potentially, be restored to his former status. The story of the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae provides a famous example. 2 men were excused from the battle due to an eye infection. One returned to Sparta and was treated as a Atraces. The other, despite his blindness, had his helot led him into the fray, where he was killed. The survivor, Aristodemus, was so tormented by his disgrace that at the later Battle of Plataea, he charged the enemy lines with reckless abandon and was killed, thereby redeeming his honor. You see the treasures in the marketplace, walking with his head down, his half-shaven face a mask of misery. People step aside, their faces blank with contempt. He is a ghost in his own city. His existence is a lesson for every child, every boy in the Agoge, every man in the phalanx. This is the fate that awaits those who fail. It's a powerful deterrent, a constant reminder that in Sparta, Your social and personal life is entirely conditional on your courage. Without it, you are nothing. You live in a world obsessed with the body. From the moment you are born, your physical form is scrutinized, trained, hardened, and displayed. But the Spartan idea of beauty is radically different from that of your neighbors in Athens, who sculpt idealized forms in marble. For you, beauty is not about aesthetics, it's about function. A beautiful body is a useful body. For a man, this means a body that is lean, strong, and hard as oak. It's a body built for endurance and warfare, not for show. The long hair worn by Spartan warriors, a famous marker of their identity, isn't for vanity. It was an ancient Laconian tradition, a symbol of a free man, and it was said that Lycurgus himself decreed that it made handsome men more handsome and ugly men more terrifying. Before a battle, you will sit and calmly comb this long hair, a ritual of preparation that unnerved your enemies. It was a sign of your supreme confidence. Your body tells the story of your life. The scars on your arms from wrestling and the Agoge, the hardened soles of your feet from going barefoot, the lean muscle from years of meager rations and constant exercise, these are your marks of distinction. A soft, pale, fleshy body would be a sign of disgrace, an indication that a man was not living the proper Spartan life. For a woman, the standard of beauty is the same function over form. A beautiful woman is not a delicate, pale, cloistered creature. She is athletic, tanned from exercising outdoors, and visibly strong. Her beauty lies in her evident health and fitness, qualities that signal her ability to produce strong children. The nickname thigh showers, given to Spartan girls by other Greeks, was an insult from their perspective, but a point of pride for you. It was a sign that your women were not hidden away like property, but were active, powerful participants in the life of the state. This focus on the functional body changes the nature of attraction. You are conditioned to see strength, health, and vitality as the most desirable qualities in a partner. When you watch the girls competing in their foot races, you are not just admiring their form, you are assessing their potential as mothers. It's a pragmatic attraction, a eugenic gaze. The state has trained you to find the qualities it needs most to be the qualities you desire most. Here's a small, telling detail about Spartan adornment. Luxury was despised. Gold, silver, and elaborate jewelry were forbidden. Your money for a long time was a cumbersome form of iron rods, deliberately made impractical to discourage the accumulation of wealth and make theft difficult. So people could not display their status through material possessions. Your status was displayed on your body through its fitness, its scars, and its disciplined bearing. The body itself was the ultimate status symbol. Even the way you speak is part of this aesthetic of austerity. The laconic speech for which you are famous, using few words to make a powerful point, is a kind of verbal minimalism. Just as your houses are functional and your clothes are simple, your language is stripped of unnecessary ornamentation. Beauty is found in efficiency, in both body and speech. The question of how these standards affected interpersonal relationships is one that historians continue to ponder. In a society that so heavily prized the perfect physical specimen, what was the fate of those who were simply plain, or who did not fit the athletic ideal? The emphasis on eugenics suggests that life may have been difficult for them. Marriage was a marketplace of genetic potential, and those with less to offer may have struggled. However, the system also prized character, courage, discipline. Wait, it's likely that a person of average looks but exceptional character could still be highly respected and find a suitable partner. Ultimately, the Spartan aesthetic is an aesthetic of survival. Everything beautiful is beautiful because it contributes to the strength and resilience of the state. The gleaming muscles of a wrestler, the confident stride of a female athlete, the long hair of a warrior, the sharp edge of a well-crafted insult, these are the things you find beautiful. It is a beauty born not of leisure and philosophy, but of discipline, hardship, and the relentless pursuit of human excellence for a single, all-consuming purpose, the glory and survival of Sparta. You are dimly aware of the world beyond the mountains that ring your valley of Laconia. You know there are other cities, Corinth, Thebes, and the great rival, Athens. Occasionally, you encounter their people, as traders, ambassadors, or, most often, as enemies on the battlefield, and you hear whispers of what they think of you. To them, you are a source of fear, fascination, and utter bewilderment. An Athenian visiting Sparta would feel like they had landed on another planet. The first thing they would notice is the women. In Athens, a respectable woman's life is one of near total seclusion. To see your wives and daughters exercising in public, speaking their minds, and owning property would be profoundly shocking to him. The Athenian playwright Euripides wrote that a Spartan girl could not be chaste even if she wanted to. A slanderous line that reflects the deep Athenian anxiety about your women's freedom. They saw it not as a sign of strength, but of moral decay. Then there is the matter of your marriage customs. An Athenian marries with a public ceremony, a feast, a procession to his new home. When he hears about your marriage by abduction, the shaved head of the bride, the secret nocturnal visits, he would see it as barbaric, primitive, and utterly lacking in the proper sentiment. Your entire approach to relationships, the wife sharing, the focus on eugenics, the subordination of family to the state would seem to him to be a cold, nerveless, and inhuman system. Your king's mess hall would also be a source of wonder. While Athenians also had men's social clubs, the compulsory, lifelong nature of the S3X city was unique. The famous black broth would be a running joke, a symbol of your complete rejection of pleasure and comfort. An Athenian values fine food, good wine, philosophical conversation, and beautiful art. He looks at your austere life, your simple buildings, your functional pottery, and sees a cultural wasteland. Where are your great temples, your theaters, your sculptors in his eyes? You have sacrificed everything that makes life worth living for the sake of military discipline. And yet, despite all this criticism, there is a powerful undercurrent of grudging admiration. This feeling was called Laconianism or Laconophilia, fascination with all things Spartan. Many wealthy, aristocratic Athenians, including prominent figures like Xenophon, to some extent, even Plato, looked at their own messy, chaotic democracy and then looked at your stable, orderly, and disciplined society with a certain envy. They saw Sparta as a well-oiled machine, a society that had successfully engineered its citizens to be virtuous and brave. This is a deep-seated debate among historians how much of our picture of Sparta is the truth, and how much is a mirage. The French scholar François coined the term the Spartan mirage to describe the idealized vision of Sparta created by outside admirers. They often projected their own philosophical ideals onto your city, sometimes ignoring the brutal realities of the Helot system or the harshness of the Agoge. They saw the good parts, the discipline, the equality among citizens, the stability without fully grappling with the cost. So you exist in the Greek imagination as a paradox. You are at once the most admired and the most reviled of people. You are seen as virtuous and cruel, heroic and barbaric, a model of order and of bizarre customs. You are the other, the standard against which all other Greeks measure themselves. When you hear these outside opinions, you likely react with a typical Spartan disdain. What do these soft, talkative Athenians know of honor or courage? Their criticism is a sign of their own weakness, their envy a sign of your success. You are Spartans. You do not need their approval. Their fascination and their fear are just further proof that your system, as strange and demanding as it is, works. You are the immovable rock in the turbulent sea of the Greek world, and you are content to be judged by your results, not by the opinions of outsiders. You are old now. You have been elected to the Gerousia, the Council of Elders. You sit in judgment, your voice one of the 30 that guides the state. You have lived your entire life within this intricate, perfectly calibrated machine. From this vantage point, you begin to see the cracks forming. The subtle ways in which the system that made Sparta great is also leading to its slow, inexorable decline. The problem, ironically, is one of success. For centuries, your system of eugenics, education, and social engineering has produced the finest soldiers in Greece. But it is a system that demands perfection, and it is incredibly brittle. The number of full citizens, is shrinking. This process is called entropy, the shortage of men, and it is Sparta's fatal disease. Why is this happening? You see it all around you. You see it in the rigid requirements of the S3X city. A comrade, a good man, has a series of bad harvests on his kale arrows. He fails to make his monthly contribution of barley and wine. He is expelled from the mess hall. And just like that, he and his children lose their citizenship. They become inferiors, stripped of their rights and status. His family line, which may have produced warriors for generations, is now removed from the citizen body. You also see it in the inheritance laws. The unique power of Spartan women to own and inherit land, a source of strength, has had an unintended consequence. Over generations, more and more land has become concentrated in the hands of a few wealthy families, often controlled by heiresses. But less fortunate families find their ancestral plots of land shrinking or disappearing altogether. Without the minimum land required to support their mess hall dues, they too fall out of the citizen class. The pyramid is getting smaller and smaller at the top, and heavier at the bottom. Historians still debate the primary cause of Sparta's decline. Was it the economic pressure of the S3X city, or was it the concentration of land in the hands of women? As Aristotle argued, was it the constant loss of men in warfare, or was it a simple demographic trap, where the state's eugenic standards were so high that not enough children were being born and surviving to maintain the population? The answer is likely a combination of all these factors. The machine was too demanding, its standards too high, its rules too inflexible. The Battle of Leuctra 371 BC. Is the moment the cracks shatter. Your army, long considered invincible, is defeated by the bands under the brilliant General Epaminondas. He uses a new tactic, strengthening one wing of his phalanx to smash through your lines. But the real story is not just the tactical defeat, it's the numbers. Sparta can no longer field a large army of citizens. The shortage of men is now a catastrophic military vulnerability. After the defeat, the bands invade your homeland. For the first time in centuries, an enemy army marches through the valley of Laconia. They liberate the entire region of Messenia, freeing the helots who have worked your lands for generations. With a single stroke, Sparta loses half of its territory and the economic engine that powered its entire society. The system collapses. Your world is turned upside down. The rigid social structure, the relationship between citizen, perioikos, and helot, is broken. The wealth that funded the Agoge and the S3X city is gone. The foundations of your society have crumbled. You sit in the council hall, a leader of a state that is now a shadow of its former self. You look back at your life, at the relationships and customs that defined it. The arranged marriage, the separation from your family, the absolute loyalty to the messmates, the constant pressure to produce perfect children. It was a system of immense power and terrible cost. It created the most feared warriors in the world, but it was so demanding, so unforgiving, that it ultimately consumed itself. The great Spartan experiment, the attempt to engineer a perfect society, has failed, and you are left to live among the ruins. The sun sets behind Mount Tigidawes, casting long shadows across all, and that feels unfamiliar, even though you have never left the world you were born into. The world of Spartan supremacy is gone. You are an old man, a relic of a bygone era. You walk through the streets of your city, and they feel emptier now. The energy, the supreme confidence that once defined this place, has been replaced by quiet melancholy. You look back on your life, a life lived entirely by the code of Lycurgus. You think of your own inspection as a newborn, the cold, appraising eyes of the elders. You remember being torn from your mother at 7, the deliberate hardening process of the Agoge. You recall the strange, secret beginning of your marriage, a union forged in darkness and duty. You picture the faces of your comrades in the S3X city, the men who were your true family, sharing the black broth and the stories of war. Was it a good life? It's a question that feels foreign. The concept of a good life in the personal, individual sense was never the point. The point was a useful life, a life of service. You served the state. You produced children for the state. You fought for the state. Every relationship, every choice, every sacrifice was measured against this single standard. You think of your wife. She is old now, too. Your bond, which began as a pragmatic alliance, has weathered the decades. You have become true partners, bound by a shared history of duty and loss. In the quiet of your home, away from the demands of the state, you have found a kind of peace. It's not the passionate love the Athenian poets write about, but something more durable, something forged in a crucible. It is a love made of respect, endurance, and a profound, unspoken understanding of everything you have been through together. The legacy of your strange and brutal system is complex. On the one hand, it created a legend, the story of Sparta, the tale of the 300 at Thermopylae. The ideal of the selfless warrior citizen will echo through history for thousands of years. It will inspire soldiers, philosophers, and revolutionaries. The words Spartan and laconic will enter the languages of the world, symbols of discipline and austere strength. But you know the other side of the story. You know the cost. You think of the helots who lived and died in fear to make your life possible. You think of the tremblers and the inferiors, the men who were broken and discarded by the unforgiving system. You think of the countless babies left to die on the mountainside because they were deemed imperfect. You understand that the perfect wall of Spartan shields was built on a foundation of profound human suffering. Historians will forever debate the true nature of your society. Was it a utopian ideal of communal sacrifice? Or a dystopian nightmare of totalitarian control? Was it a model of civic virtue? Or a cautionary tale about the dangers of sacrificing humanity for the sake of the state? The truth, as you know, is that it was all of these things at once. You sit on your porch, watching the last light fade. You have outlived your city's greatness, the rigorous discipline, the strange customs of marriage, the entire elaborate structure of your society. It was all designed for a world that no longer exists. You are a living testament to a grand, failed experiment in human engineering. Your memories are of a life that is now as distant, unbelievable as a myth. And as darkness falls over the valley, you close your eyes, a lonely survivor of the toughest, strangest, and most disciplined society the world has ever known. Tyndale. The story fades, like the last embers of a campfire sinking into the soft, grey ash. The sharp edges of Sparta begin to blur, the sounds of the gymnasium and the mess hall humming into a gentle, distant drone. You can feel the weight of that heavy shield slipping from your arm, the tension of the phalanx dissolving into the quiet of the night, the rigid lines of duty and discipline often melting into the fluid, easy landscape of a dream. You are floating now, drifting on a slow, warm current. The voices of the past, the laconic commands and the choral songs, are just whispers on the breeze, carrying you gently forward. There are no more inspections to pass, no more nocturnal missions to run. There is only the soft, steady rhythm of your own breathing, a quiet impersonal cadence in the vast silence of sleep. The world of sharp spears and black broth recedes, replaced by the boundless, comfortable darkness behind your closed eyes. Let the story go. Let the history settle. You have listened enough for one night. Now, it is time for rest. The end of the article. Good night.